Well, hello and welcome aboard, everybody. It's Rob from PMDG, back with another tutorial for our Douglas DC-6 for Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is going to be a pretty short one. We're going to focus on some survival techniques with the anti-ice system on the DC-6. There's a lot of it out there, so let's get started. Ice in aviation really is a factor of life. Either you're going to climb out through it, you're going to cruise in it, or you're going to let down through it. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. Traditionally, in the simulator environment, we haven't had to pay a whole lot of attention to it. It's something that's kind of out there, but you don't really run into. That's changed with the new Microsoft Flight Simulator. Ice is actually a really prevalent part of life, maybe even a little bit more so than real life, which is why we're bringing you this survival guide for how to use the de-ice systems on the DC-6. First, understand that there's not a whole lot of mystery to when you should expect to run into ice. If you are in a cloud layer or in moisture and the temperature is between -10 and +10 Celsius, you should be expecting to see ice. You're going to see a lot of it right at the tops of cloud layers on moist days because that's where the moisture is, and that's also where the cloud is coldest. So the way you kind of protect yourself is keep an eye on this gauge right here. This is your outside air temperature gauge. You can see right now the outside air temperature is running about -12 degrees Celsius. If it's between -10 and +10, or really even close to that range, you're going to find some ice. Now, we're cruising at 13,000 feet on a fairly moist day. We've been banging through the tops of the clouds, and look at us, we look like a popsicle. This is what happens. Up here, you've got your pitot heater. If you've ever flown a general aviation airplane, you're familiar with pitot heat. This should be on if the airplane's flying. Next to it is a dial that allows you to check to see if other aspects of the electrically heated parts of the airplane are operating. You can see on the placard around the dial, it gives you the amperage that you should expect to see when the dial's in those positions, provided that the switch is on. Occasionally, if you think that something's icing up, swing through those, take a look at the gauge, make sure you're doing okay. This is where we're going to do battle against ice. This is the home for your ice protection systems. The DC-6 has a bunch of gas heaters that are used to produce exhaust that is then used to heat the interior of the leading edges of ice-sensitive systems such as the wings, the tail, that sort of thing. If you look, you'll see that you've got a temperature gauge right here. It shows you your cabin heater temperature, shows you your wing and your tail heater temperatures as well. Currently, the cabin temperature shows a reading because it's running, but the wing and tail don't. To make this work, all we got to do is turn it on. You can see there's an on-off switch right here for the cabin temperature. There's another on-off switch right here for your wing and tail heaters. Then you've also got your prop de-ice right here. When you turn the airfoil heater on, you'll notice that those 3 needles for the wings and tail just start to warm right up, and that's your indication that the system is running. The prop de-icer, you don't get as good an indication. It's electrics, but you turn that on and it works. Over here on the left side, this is your windshield heater primarily. There's a couple of vinyl areas of the airplane, the windshields and the radome, that are heated using exhaust air from the cabin heating system. And this switch is really well labeled. It's an entirely manual system that's temperature dependent. So you read the temperature gauge for the outside air temperature, you look up here at the diagram, and that tells you which setting it should be on. Now in our case, the outside air temperature is -12 or so, so we want to move it over here to the 0 to -40, and that'll provide just enough heat to keep the ice off the windshield, and that way we can see a little bit better. Over here we've got Carburetor anti-ice, and this is your alcohol-based system. You've got two ways to de-ice the carburetors in the airplane. I'm going to go into a huge amount of detail on that in the advanced tutorial because it's actually a pretty sophisticated system. But if you run into ice, go ahead and pull these carburetor heat levers up about halfway. That'll get you through most of everything but the worst of it. Looking at our engine gauges, we're not seeing any indication of carburetor ice, so there's really no reason to pull them up right now. But that's pretty much all you need to know for a survival guide. You can see that our windshields are starting to see some of the effect of the heat that's been applied to them, and in a couple of minutes here they'll clear up and then remain completely clear of ice as we go bouncing in and out of the tops of the clouds here. It is worth noting that when you're flying a prop liner, as you go in and out of the tops of the clouds, that's really where you're going to find ice. The anti-iced airplane parts of the airplane are the leading edge of the wing, the leading edge of the horizontal stabilizer, the leading edge of the vertical stabilizer. The propellers are electrically de-iced, and then of course we've been talking about our windshield here and the tip of the nose. But you're going to notice ice accumulate on those as you scoot in and out of the tops of clouds if you're in the mid-teens and the temperature's hovering around -10 Celsius. And the reason why is those clouds are building because warm air is rising, and with that warm air rising, it's pulling moisture with it. And you're just kind of plowing right through there with a cold saturated airplane, and the temperatures are just right. And when that moisture hits the airframe, it loses a lot of energy when it hits the airframe and it freezes, and that's why you're seeing what you're seeing. I'm going to speed up the time a little bit here just so you can see the effect of losing the ice off the windshields as the heaters do their thing. While we do that, just a quick recap. If you find yourself in ice, make sure your pitot heater is on. Then look at the top left eyebrow panel and make sure that you've turned on the one switch for the wing and tail heaters and the one switch for your propeller de-icers. You do those two things, you've got most of your bases covered, and for the most part you don't need to worry. Now, we will put together an advanced tutorial to really go in depth into some of the finer points of how to operate the anti-ice systems. Once you've really gotten comfortable with the airplane, go through the advanced tutorials, and then you'll really be learning in depth some of the aspects of this airplane. That's about it for now, so if you find yourself in ice, refer back to this one here. It'll get you through it. Thanks for flying, PMDG. Fly safely, be well, look after one another, and we'll see you real soon.